All right, the way you do this problem number one of this section 1.02c, what you need to do is, in this problem, they're asking you out of the total water consumption, okay, how many households are in the city if every household consumes this amount. So this problem is implying a division problem. So what I'm doing is I'm dividing 3.2 times 10 to the sixth power, which is the total water consumption. I'm gonna divide it by how many liters of water how many liters of household are drink by day. Okay, and that will give me the total number of households. Now, the way you divide scientific notation, you divide the coefficients with the coefficients. So these numbers, you're going to divide it. All right. And you can use the calculator for that here. So, for example, I'm going to get my calculator. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 3.2. I'm going to divide it by 4.8, so 3.2 divided by 4.8, and you can get, I get 0. So when I do that division, I get 0.6667. Now the instruction says to round to the nearest hundred, so I'm going to round this to 0.67. And then I'm going to divide the powers of 10, but the way you divide the powers of 10 is, see what I highlighted in blue, you're going to keep the 10, and what you're going to do is subtract the exponent. So 6 minus 2 is 4. Now your final answer, okay, 0.67 cannot remain like that because this number, this here, is not between 1 and 10. So what you're going to do is you're going to move the decimal point one time to the right. So I get a number between 1 and 10. Now, if I move the decimal point to the right, I'm going to subtract 1 from the exponent. That's why the final answer is 6.7 times 10 to the third power. Okay? And that's how you do this problem. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so in question number 2, in this problem, they told you what is the total country's GDP in money, dollars, 2.7 times 10 to the 12th power. And they tell you that in total, they are employed individuals. There are a total of 6.48 times 10 to the 7th power. And they want to know how much is the GDP for each one of these employees that are in total. How much of each one of these are using the total amount of the GDP? So basically, this problem you're dividing again because you take in the total, which is 2.7 times 10 to the 12th power dollars, and you want to divide it among how many people, employee individuals are there, 6.48 times 10 to the 7th power. Okay, so you're doing a division problem here. How do you divide this? The way you're going to divide this is you're going to divide the coefficients with the coefficients. So what I'm highlighting in blue, these numbers are called coefficients. And what you're going to do is you're going to divide them. So getting my calculator, here is my calculator. I'm going to take 2.7 and I'm going to divide it by 6.48. And if I'm not mistaken, the instruction says round to the nearest thousand. So that means you're going to round to the third digit of the decimal here. So my new number is going to be 0.417. That's the thousand place, rounding to the third digit here with the 6 I highlighted there. Okay. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to divide the powers of 10, which I'm going to highlight in yellow. So this here that I'm highlighting in yellow, these are the powers of 10. And what you do is you keep the 10, and what you're going to do is subtract the exponent. So 12 minus 7 is 5. However, your answer here, the answer that I have down here, it's not in scientific notation because this number, the 0.417, is not between 1 and 10. So I had to fix it. And how do you fix it? You're going to take the decimal point of 0.417 and you're going to move it to the right so you get the number 4.17. And 4.17 is between 1 and 10. Now, you move the decimal point to the right, it means you have to subtract 1 from the exponent. I move it 1 time to the right, I subtract 1 from the exponent. So now I'm going to have 4.17 times 10 to the 4th power. And that's how you do problem number 2. In problem 3, they basically asking you to multiply these two numbers in scientific notation. 7 times 10 to the 10th power multiplied by 2.8 times 10 to the 5th power. How do you multiply? You're going to multiply the coefficients with the coefficients. In other words, you're going to multiply the 7 by the 2.8. See, I'm going to multiply those two. And for that, use your calculator. Okay? So take your calculator and multiply 7 multiplied by 2.8. And you get 19.6. That's what I get when I multiply those two numbers. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to multiply the powers of 10, which I'm going to highlight in green. Okay? And the way you multiply the powers of 10 is you're going to keep the 10. So I'm going to cap times 10. So I keep the 10, and what I'm going to do is add the exponent. So 10 plus 5 is 15. However, you always need to check that your final answer is in scientific notation. However, 19.6, the coefficient, cannot fit in the big square here, the big box, because 19.6 is not between 1 and 10. So what you're going to do, you're going to take the decimal point and you're going to move it 1 time to the left. Okay, and that way you get 1.96. Now you move the decimal point to the left 1 time, it means you're adding 1 to the exponent of the 10. That's why we're going to have times 10 to the 16th power. Okay, and that's how you do question number 3. In question 4, we're doing the same thing. You're going to multiply two numbers in scientific notation. 3.4 times 10 to the 11th power multiplied by 1.57 times 10 to the 9th power. Like I did in question number 3, I'm going to do in question number 4. The way you're going to multiply this is you're going to multiply the coefficients, the one that I'm highlighting in green. I'm going to multiply them. For that, I suggest use the calculator. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to bring my calculator. And I'm going to multiply 3.4 times 1.57. And you can see I got 5.338. So I multiplied the coefficients. Now what you're going to do next is you're going to multiply the powers of 10. In other words, you're going to multiply the ones that I'm highlighting in yellow. And the way you multiply these is using the laws of exponent. Every time you multiply powers with the same base, you keep the base. So I keep the 10. And what I'm going to do with the exponents of the 10s, the 11 and the 9, I'm going to add them. 11 plus 9 is 20. Now, always check if your answer is in scientific notation. In my case, the final answer here, it is in scientific notation because this number, 5.338, fits in this box because it's a number between 1 and 10. So that will be my final answer. Let's go to number 5. In problem 5, we have a word problem, and they told you that the human body has 5 times 10 to the 9th power red blood cells per milliliter. So every milliliter of blood that we have 5 times 10 to the 9th power red blood cells. Okay, now it says here that if an average adult has 5 times 10 to the 13th power milliliters of blood, how many red cells we're going to have? So in 1 milliliter, we have 5 times 10 to the 9th power. In total, the body, humans, adults, have 5 times 10 to the 3rd power milliliters. This problem is basically a multiplication problem, okay? Because I know how much are in a milliliter, And every milliliter, they are this amount, 5 times 10 to the 9 powers red blood cells in 1 milliliter. And in total, we have 5 times 10 to the third power milliliters, okay, of blood. So basically, this is a multiplication. So I'm multiplying 5 times 10 to the 9th power. I'm multiplying by 5 times 10 to the third power. And again, how do you multiply this? You're going to multiply the coefficients with the coefficient, what I highlighted in yellow. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then I'm going to multiply the powers of 10. So these that I highlighted in blue, I'm going to multiply them. The way you multiply is you keep the 10. And what you do is you add the exponent. So that will be 12. However, my final answer here, the 25, cannot fit in here because 25 is not a number between 1 and 10. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to fix this 25. I'm going to have to move the decimal point. The decimal point is at the end. I want to move it to the left because that way I get a number between 1 and 10. I get 2.5. And then if I move it to the left, it means I'm going to add 1 to the exponent of the 10. So my final answer, 2.5 times 10 to the 13th power. When you move to the left, you add to the exponent. If you move to the right, you're subtracting to the exponent. Okay? So that's how you work this problem. In problem number 6, when you read the problem, we're going to have another multiplication because they told you how many meters the light can travel for every second. And if the light takes certain amount of seconds to find out how much it traveled, the distance, you just multiply the speed by the time. So basically, I am multiplying 3 times 10 to the 8th power. I am multiplying by 2 times 10 to the 3rd power. And again, how do we multiply this? We multiply the coefficients with the coefficient. So the ones that I highlighted in blue are called the coefficient. 3 times 2 is 6. And I'm multiplying the powers of 10 by the powers of 10. So the ones that I'm highlighting in yellow. Okay? So I'm going to multiply those. Now, the way you multiply powers of 10 is you keep the 10. And what you're going to do now is you add the exponent. That's how you get 11. And my final answer is in scientific notation because 6 can fit in this box. 6 is between 1 and 10. So my final answer is 6 times 10 to the 11th power. Let's go to number 7. In problem number 7, we're doing a division problem. So we have 8.96 times 10 to the 11th power divided by 5.6 times 10 to the 29th power. And the way you divide numbers in scientific notation, basically, you're going to divide the coefficients by the coefficients. So I'm going to divide 8.96 by 5.6. Now I'm going to use the calculator to do that division problem. So let me call my calculator. So I'm going to do that division here. So I'm going to divide 8.96 divided by 5.6, and I get 1.6. And then I'm going to divide the powers of 10, the ones that I'm highlighting in blue. Okay, so I'm going to divide the powers of 10. But how you divide powers of 10? You're going to keep the 10. And what you're going to do with the exponents is subtract. So 11 minus 29, that will give me negative 18. And because this number here, the coefficient of my answer is between 1 and 10, so it fits here in the box, okay, because it's a number between 1 and 10, my answer is already in scientific notation. And that will be how I do problem number 7. Let's go number 8. In this problem, we're doing the same thing like we did in the previous one. We are dividing two numbers in scientific notation. So 19.6 times 10 to the 24th power over 4.9 times 10 to the 10th power. And how do we divide numbers in scientific notation? You divide the coefficients with a coefficient, the one that I highlighted in blue. But to do that, again, use the calculator. Don't do it in your head. Don't do it manually. Just use the calculator. So let me clear this. I'm going to divide 19.6 divided by 4.9. And you can see I got 4. And now the last thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to divide the powers of 10. And the way you divide the powers of 10, the ones I'm highlighting in yellow, is you're going to keep the 10. And what you're going to do with the exponents, you're going to subtract them. And 24 minus 10 is 14. And my answer here, the 4, let me cross this out. The 4 fits in this box because it's between 1 and 10. So my answer is already in scientific notation. And this is how you do problem number 8.